Shalom and welcome to Torah Anytime. Parshas Tzitzis, something super interesting. The word Tzitzis is a language of mitzvah, which means to look. It means to see. The purpose is to look at the Tzitzis and to see Hashem. If that's the case, why in the world are the Tzitzis in the low part of the beged? They should be in the high part where it's easy to see. So the answer is a very interesting idea. Says the Divrei Chaim, the Tzanzer Rabbi, something so beautiful. He says, listen to this, I saw this, I couldn't believe it. I want to share this with you, it's amazing. What a beged is a beged always means the external part of the person, the external part of the thing. The lavush, the term lavush always means the outside, not the inner, not the essence. The beged of a person, what's his essence? His essence is his neshama. The beged is his guf. The outside, the lavush, the dress on the outside is the body. Now, if you put the tzitzis on the beged, that means the purpose of the tzitzis is to raise up the beged, to raise up the lavush to a spiritual level. Says the Divrei Chaim, what we're doing in this world is we're not just taking the neshama and bringing it higher, we're also making the guf, the body, the lower parts of us also spiritual. We're giving kedusha to the lower parts of who we are as well. That's why the tzitzis are on the bottom, to remind us that it's not enough just to make kiddush on a chumash, to learn and daven and do mitzvahs and forget about the guf. No. You have to bring the lower parts also. And what's amazing about this is very encouraging, if we could just broaden the idea, is that sometimes you're in a difficult situation. You feel like, why is Hashem dragging me into this? I miss my boss, I'm having a hard time with money, chalil, or chas v'shalom, a hard time with parnasa. Why do I feel so low? And the reason is because Hashem sent us to this world to go to the situations that are difficult and to mekadesh them, to bring them up. On the way back from shul today, I saw one of my neighbors, a wonderful man, and he said to me, I said, how are things going? He said, great, Baruch Hashem, really good. He's always very besimcha. Now, I know this man has a business, and he lives in Israel, and his business is always doing very, very well. And he said, my business has 100% shut down. I have had no business for 3 months since this whole corona system has started. I said, wow, what happened? He said, yeah, I have no business, no one's coming. He said, but Baruch Hashem, if I look at myself like an eved of the melech, if I look at myself as an employee, then my boss is going to pay for everything. And if my boss doesn't pay for everything, then that's just perfect. This guy is in a situation where he normally has plenty of money, plenty of parnasa, and now his debts for all the deposits are really stacking up. But he said, if I'm in this situation that's so low, it's so down, that means Hashem wants me to pull this up and put kedusha and put holiness and emunah into the situation. The only way we can raise up the low levels is by now and then being in that low level. The neshama was put into the body to raise up the body. So when you're in a situation that you feel so low, say to yourself, this is my chance. This is my chance to put tzitzis, meitzits, to look and see Hashem is running the world, not me, and to raise up the situation. And if we do that, be'ezras Hashem will be zeichet to bring the beged, which is the guf, the lower part of who we are, up to kedusha and tahara, and give Hashem a lot of nachas. There's another really interesting aspect of the tzitzis on the beged, on the clothing. The purpose of the beged, we said before, is the beged means the guf. It's the external part of who we are. It's the body. It's not the soul. It's not the neshama. The tzitzis are meant to bring up, to spiritualize the lower levels of who we are. When Hashem is telling us to put the tzitzis on the beged, He's telling us, look at the lower part of who you are. And look in the distance what's really going to happen. Chazal tell us, Chacham einav b'roishoi. A wise man, his eyes are in his mind. In other words, we don't get distracted and we don't get confused by what we see with just our eyes. We're able to project into the future and see what's the result of these actions. Where is this going? What's going to happen if I follow this road or that road? What's going to be? So the Torah is telling us that if we want to be kodesh, we want to be good, we want to serve a Kadosh Baruch Hu in the right direction, we have to look, tzitzis, meitzits, to look at the beged. Put your tzitzis, your eyes, your vision on the beged, on the lavush, on the externality, on the body, and see where is this going. If I follow after my physicality, it's going to wind up in a place I don't want to be. It's okay to take care of the body, that's totally fine, but I do not want to go there as my main pursuit. That's not what life's about. And that's why it says beforehand that tzitzis are meant to uplift us, and we're able to do that when we say, let's look at where that body's going and say, I'm not going there, I'm choosing ruchnius. Hashem says, I'm the one who took you out of Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim's all physical. They went after their guf, they went after the body, and look what happened to them. And Klal Yisrael instead, I'm taking you out to be HaKadosh Baruch Hu to you. And what happened to Klal Yisrael after we left? We went to Har Sinai, we worked on ourselves, we went up and up and up. We separated from that Gashmias, we separated from that physicality, from that negative physicality, and eventually we were able to makabel the Torah and become the Am Hashem. Be'ezus Hashem, we should all be Zoicha. Now, doing this requires a very special mabat. It requires a focus, and it requires a mental attitude in order to be able to minimize some of the physicality and to focus on the power of the tzitzis. How do we do this? So the Rabbeinu Bechaya brings a medrash, a beautiful medrash that says the following. We live in a world almost like an ocean. Wave after wave after wave is totally overcoming us. Delicious food and sleep and the fatigue of the body, all these things. It's like being in an ocean. How do we survive? How do we not become overcome by the gashmias, by the physicality? So says the Medrash something amazing. That the tzitzis, the mitzvahs in general, are like a lifeline. Everything in our lives that we go through, there's mitzvahs. If you want to plow in your field, there's a special halacha about not plowing in a way that you can't plow. If you want to use your oxen, you want to use your animals, certain animals you can use in a certain way, certain animals you can't use a certain way. If you want to build a house, you have to put a mezuzah on the door. If you want to have clothing, you have to make sure they're not shatnez. You have to put tzitzis on the clothing. If you want to build a house, you have to make sure there's a makkah, protective fence around the roof. Every step of the way in the mitzvahs, in our lives, is protecting us and connecting us to ruchnius. But there's one chut, there's one string of electricity, there's a wire that makes all of those mitzvahs something that's going to help us and protect us. What is that? That's the tzitzis. The tzitzis connect us to Hashem. Listen to the language of the Medrash. I want to read it to you. It says, Mashal la'adam shetava b'mayim. It's a muscle, it's a metaphor to a person who's sinking in the water. Uma asa, what does the captain do? He says he extends, he throws him a life raft, he throws him a line, a lifeline. And he says to that person, grab onto that string, grab onto and don't let go. If you hold on to it, you're going to live. If you don't hold on to it, you'll be lost in the water. We're in an ocean, Rabbi Isai. My friends, we're in an ocean. We're surrounded by so many things. How do we not drown? The only way to do it is to hold on to the mitzvahs. The tzitzis. Even if you're not a man who wears tzitzis, you're a woman, you can't wear tzitzis. But it's a symbol of holding on to the lifeline of mitzvahs. Any mitzvahs that we can do is a lifeline to us. The tzitzis is a symbol of that. Now, the purpose of the tzitzis is to remind us of all of the mitzvahs. You see the tzitzis and you remember to do all the mitzvahs of Hashem. You know, a person will say, listen, that's fantastic, but, I wear tzitzis and I don't think about them at all. So how come it's not working? So the Alshich asked this kasha and he says the following. It's a common practice for people to tie something around their finger, a string, to remind yourself. But if you tie the string around your body for a purpose other than reminding yourself, it's not going to remind you. Chas v'shalom, a person is losing blood and they have to make a tourniquet on their body. They tie a string around the body to stop themselves from bleeding. That's not going to remind them to do anything. But if you put the string there, l'chadchila, if the intention of putting the string there is to remind you, then you'll remember what you need to remember. So says the Alshich, when a person puts on tzitzis, it's critically important to say, I'm putting on the tzitzis right now with the kavanah, with the intention to remind me of the mitzvahs. Very beautiful, then you'll be reminded. But there's another way that the tzitzis also remind us of the mitzvahs. The purpose of the tzitzis is to get us to think about Hashem and to think about what He wants us to do. Once I'm aware, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's here, He's all around me, He's paying attention to me, it's real time, Hashem's real, and He wants me to do something. He's, so to speak, standing over me. Then I have no problem remembering to do His mitzvahs. How do I do that, and how does the tzitzis show me that? So listen to this beautiful idea. Everything about the tzitzis reminds us of Hashem and the mitzvahs. Each one of the corners of the tzitzis has 5 knots. The 5 knots is a remez to the Chamesha Chumshei Torah, but it goes further. If you look at the strings in the tzitzis, in each one of the sides of the tzitzis, each one of the tzitzis is 4 strings doubled over. So each of the tzitzis, each corner, has 4 doubled over, which is 8 strings, plus 5 knots. 8 and 5 is 13. 13 on one side, and 13 on the other side, on the right and the left in the front, and on the right and the left in the back. 13 and 13 is 26. That is the exact gematria of Hashem. So what you see is, either way you do it, Hashem is surrounding us with the tzitzis. When you have the tzitzis in the front, 26, in the front and the back, Hashem in front and behind us are all around us. Or Hashem is around us to the side and to the other side. As a matter of fact, it goes even further. Because the language of talis, like netila, same idea, means to elevate us. The purpose is to not get lost in the physical world. The purpose is to raise us up from the physical, to take the physical and to raise it up. And it goes even further, because what we do is we wrap ourselves in the talis. The mitzvah of talis gadol, the bracha that we make is lehisatef batzitzis, to wrap yourself in the talis. That is a remez, that's a hint. After Hashem resurrects the dead, He's going to take that soul and wrap it in a new body. As a matter of fact, it's quite literal, because there's a question, what's going to happen? When a person has Techiyas HaMesim, he's going to have Techiyas HaMesim without any clothes? No. So Chazal say it's a Kal V'chomer. If you put a seed in the ground, and the seed is 100% naked, has no clothing, and it comes out with different levels of covering, then certainly a person who's buried with clothing is going to come out with clothing. So when Hashem does Techiyas HaMesim, He's going to do it with clothing. What's the idea here? When we wrap ourselves in the tzitzis, it's a reminder that Hashem is going to clothe us when He does Techiyas HaMesim. Now, what does that have to do with mitzvahs? What does that have to do with getting away from physicality? Because it's a reminder that that's where we're going. I don't want to go after my body. That's not the purpose. I want to go after my soul. Techiyas HaMesim only happens for the people that Be'ez Hashem were included have made their lives a life of ruchnius and spirituality. So we put on tzitzis. All of these things remind us of Hashem and of His mitzvahs. But as the Shlach says, if you don't put them on with that intention, you're not going to remember. You tie a string around yourself for some random purpose, of course you won't remember anything. So the whole purpose is to have kavanah. Now, if you put your tzitzis on already, and you didn't do it that reason, so say right now, I'm wearing my tzitzis for that reason. Now here's another aspect of tzitzis. Tzitzis are meant to help us avoid kas, avoid anger. How is that? So if you look at the gematria of kanaf, which is where the tzitz is supposed to be, kanaf means corner. You have to put the tzitzis on the corner of the beged. The word kanaf is the exact gematria of 150, which is the exact gematria of kas, of anger. The Arizal says that tzitzis are a segula for bittul hakas. Tzitzis helps us get rid of kas. How is that? So the answer is because if tzitzis means meitzitz, means to look, then the purpose is to know that Hashem is looking at us when we wear tzitzis. It works like this. What anger is that we forget that Hashem is there. If the tzitzis are meant to remind me that Hashem is here, then it's so much easier to not get angry. When I know that Hashem is standing over me and watching me, it's so much easier. Even regular people, if the Rosh Yeshiva is sitting on your couch and you really want to get upset at one of your kids, it's no problem. Your chavrusa, the Rosh Yeshiva is sitting right here, your boss is sitting right here, even your neighbor is sitting right there. It's so much easier not to get angry. Kal v'chomer, how much more so we remember HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you don't get angry. That's the whole purpose. And it goes even further than that. The Shlach tells us that when you feel anger, it's good to do something to get rid of the process of anger, to do a pa'ula, an action to get rid of anger. What action is that? So the Shlach says, hold on to the kanaf of your tzitzis, hold on to the corner of your tzitzis. What does that have to do with anything? So because the gematria of kanaf is kas, that's what it does it. But you have to think about that b'shas ma'is. You think that my tzitzis are protecting me from anger. It's going to help me avoid that. As a matter of fact, it goes even further because the pasuk says, "V'hayolachem letzitzis ureisem oisoi." When you have those tzitzis on, re'isem oisoi, you're going to see Hashem. It helps you think about and see Hashem when you wear tzitzis. And it goes even further. When Yosef HaTzadik said to his brothers, you're going back to Eretz Yisrael, go get Yaakov Avinu, bring him down, now you know I'm your brother, I'm the one you sold, al tirgazu b'darech, don't get angry as you're traveling. The exact gematria of Al Tirgazu B'Darech is Arba Tzitzis. In other words, the purpose of the tzitzis is to help you not get angry. Now, the stark side of this is that there's actually Daled Kanfos, there's Arba Kanfos. That's meant to remind us of the four mises based in. There's four types of ways that a person can die, chas v'shalom. If they're convicted, they're chayav misa. Now, we don't go there lechatchila, we don't think about that. That's not the main thing we go to. But in case chas v'shalom, a person feels like, I'm in the trouble, I'm going to do this avera, then Chazal tell us in brachas that it's important to think about Yom HaMisa. So tzitzis are helping us think about the day of death because there are four, and there's four types of misa that happen from Beis Din, from the court down here in this world. We don't have this anymore, but at least in our minds we can have that and focus us on tzitzis are helping us avoid averas and helping us to focus on ruchnius in the world. Now here's a positive way to think about Hashem when you're wearing your tzitzis. Each side of the tzitzis has knots. Between the knots, the outer string is wrapped around the inner strings. How many times is it wrapped around? It's wrapped around 7 times, and 8 times, and 11 times, and 13 times. 7, 8, 11, and 13. If you add 7, 8, 11, and 13, you get 39. 39 is the exact gematria of Hashem Echad. Each corner of the tzitzis is telling me there's only Hashem. Don't forget ruchnius. Don't focus on gashmius. Don't let the Yitzhar tell you, do the avera now. No. It's protection from gashmius. It's protection from averas. It's thinking about Hashem Echad. It's keeping us focused on the goal. That's the beauty of tzitzis. And that's what we're surrounded by. When we understand this and we think about this is where it's tzitzis and we think about, this particular mitzvah we have a handle on. Wow, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, all of the mitzvahs are this way. All of the mitzvahs are meant to connect us because if you think the word mitzvah is a lashon of tzav, which means connection. The whole purpose is connect us. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we don't even know how much the mitzvahs connect us to you, but that's what they're there for. Baruch Hashem gives me a sense of love. Hashem, I love you. That's why we mention V'ahavtas Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavcha. It's in Shema. The conclusion of that is in tzitzis to tell us that the tzitzis are meant to protect us and bring us close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and it goes even further than that. Listen to this beautiful idea. When Hashem commands us to put on tzitzis in the parish of tzitzis, first He tells Moshe Rabbeinu to speak to them. Tell them to put on tzitzis. And then in the very middle of the pasuk, it switches from talking to them to talking to you, to us, directly addressing us. First it addresses us indirectly, and then addresses directly. How does it go? Listen to this pasuk. Parshas Tzitzis starts off by HaKadosh Baruch Hu talking to Moshe and telling Moshe, command the Jewish people what Klal Yisrael, what they should do putting on the tzitzis. It says, Vayomer Hashem el Moshe lemor, daber el bnei Yisrael, speak to the bnei Yisrael, v'amart alehem, say to them, v'asu lahem tzitzis, they should make for themselves tzitzis. Al kanfei v'gdeirosam, v'nosnu al tzitzis haganah p'sil v'chulei, v'ayol lachem letzitzis. Then it switches to you. Why does it switch to you? Then you are going to remember all the mitzvahs of this. Is a really interesting idea. The concept is the following. If you look at the pasuk says something super interesting. It says, Va'asisem oisam, and you shall do them. Now, the way the word osam is written, it's as if Va'asisem atem. The vav at the end is left out. Now, we put a little dot there after the suf, and we read it as Vasisem oisam, and that's the right way to read it. But it's written as if the word says Vasisem atem, and you will make them. The Zohar says that when, in this case, it's as if we become a partner to Hashem. It's as if we make the mitzvah itself. Hashem makes the mitzvahs, but if you do the mitzvah, it's as if you've made the mitzvah and you become a partner with Hashem in making the mitzvah. What's the idea? Beautiful, beautiful idea. At first, before we do a mitzvah, we're far from Hashem. We're not connected. But since a mitzvah means connection, once we do the mitzvah, we become tzav, connected to Hashem. In this case, the mitzvah of tzitzis, once we do the mitzvah of tzitzis, it says, V'asisem atem. It's as if you have made the mitzvah. You become a partner to Hashem. Now, if you're a partner to Hashem, that means you're close to Hashem. The reason why the pasuk switches from talking about the Jewish people to talking to the Jewish people is because before the mitzvah we're further away, And after we do the mitzvah, now we're close to Hashem. Hashem says, I'm addressing you directly. That's the beauty of tzitzis. It brings us close. It makes us think about Him, and that's how we get away from Gashmias. That's how we get away from Chet, and that's how we're able to stay focused. And that's the lifeline of tzitzis. Now, there's a question over here because the beginning of Parshas Tzitzis, the pasuk says, "Vayomer Hashem el Moshe lemor." Hashem says a lashon of amira. Usually it says Vayedaber Hashem, that Hashem spoke a language of dibor. Here it says Vayomer. What's the difference between Vayomer and dibor? So Vayomer is a language of rachamim, of mercy. A very, very beautiful idea. Says the Sifsei Kayin. This is an incredible idea, that this parsha of Tzitzis is said after the parsha of the Mekoshesh Eitzim, a person who gathered wood on Shabbos. What's the idea? That person who gathered wood on Shabbos, whatever his intentions were, he did a terrible avera by gathering on Shabbos, which we're not allowed to do. And as a result, he was put to death. And as a result, Klal Yisrael, instead of keeping the first Shabbos, was more mechal the first Shabbos, because there was one person, the Jewish people, that was mechal that first Shabbos, Chaval. That man did not have the mitzvah of Tzitzis yet. It wasn't commanded yet. If that's the case, he didn't have this lifeline to connect him to the mitzvahs. So the word amira, which is rachamim, as opposed to dibor, which is din. Amira is soft, it's love, it's mercy, and dibor is tough, it's midas adin, it's strict justice. Hashem says, I'm introducing the entire parsha of Tzitzis. I'm introducing this whole parsha with Vayomer, with the language of Rachmim, because Hashem is having mercy on us and allowing us to remember the mitzvahs so we don't fall into the trap of doing Averis. That's why it says Amira, because it's a kindness, it's out of love, it's out of mercy for us. In fact, the great Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai tells us that a person kol hazaris b'mitzvahs tzitzis is zoiche and is mekabel l'pnei Shechina. Whoever works hard, whose zoris has rizus to do this mitzvah of tzitzis, he's zoicha, he has the schos of being makabel, of receiving the Shechina. This is an incredible idea. It means it's not automatic. The mitzvahs are never just an algorithm. If I do this mitzvah, I get this result. It doesn't work that way. It's a schus. Hashem says, I'm allowing those mitzvahs to have an effect on you. I'm allowing those mitzvahs to give you kedusha. So a person who has an attitude towards the mitzvahs of Hashem, wow, these tzitzis connect me to you. These tzitzis give me emunah and help me avoid kas and remind me of all the things that remind me of the kisei hakavod, all the great things that it reminds me of. I really want to do it. Hashem says, oh, you want? You have that ratzon? I'm going to be mezaka you, and I'm going to give you the Shechina. You're going to feel that Hashem is with you. And once we feel that Hashem is with us, it's so much easier to stay connected. It's when I feel disconnected that it's so hard. Now, my friends, one last very powerful message to bring it all together about tzitzis. Tzitzis are not just our relationship with Hashem. They're also our relationship with each other. The top part of the tzitzis is bound up together. The bottom 2/3 of the tzitzis, the majority, is spread out. This represents something very, very deep, two incredible ideas. The Jewish people have spent most of our history in galus, spread all around. And a part of the time, we're in Eretz Yisrael. And there's going to be a future time, be'ezus Hashem, b'mheira v'yameinu, we're going to be together again in Eretz Yisrael. Mashiach's going to come, and we're all going to be together finally again. The tzitzis represents the hope of that moment. The bottom part was spread around in galus, we're disconnected all over the world. The top part, the higher level of our existence, is all together. And the way to get there is to think about it, to look at the tzitzis and to be mitzapeh for Yeshua. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we definitely want it. We're waiting so long. Hashem, we desperately want. Please, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, please. We love you. We love each other. Finally bring us together again. And the way to do that is to think about it and to daven. Look at those tzitzis and remember we're going to be together. But there's another way. The tzitzis, when we're low, the low part, when we relate to the low parts of ourselves, to our body, to our physical drives, to our taivas and our jealousy, then we have dispersion. We're not together. we don't feel together. There's a lack of unity. And that's the lower part of the tzitzis. But when each one of us relates to the higher parts of who we are, the unity, the ruchnius, the tzitz, the beautiful high level of connecting to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the seeing that Hashem is here, the seeing that we're together, bound up, then we have unity. And then Hashem says, now you're ready for Mashiach. Be'ezras Hashem, we should all be Zoicha, Bimheira V'yameinu.